Good morning. Good morning. I'd like to call to order the March meeting of the Metro North Long Island Railroad. First thing on the agenda is public comments. First public speaker is Murray Bowden.
You all settled down? Morning. Morning, Mitch. Joe. Howard. Good morning, Howard.
Well, Murray.
Morning, Helena. Michael, I hope you're going to use your iPad for your presentation this morning. And, Mike, you really have to get out of the uniform. Welcome to the new MTA. This is not the same MTA it was 6 months ago. It has changed radically, and if you haven't understood it, I'm here to tell you this morning, this is the new MTA. I got a couple of pictures on my email this morning of a project I've been working on with bridges and tunnels. They're listening differently. Howard, if you're not going to pay attention to me, I'm not going to talk, because this is all about you. What are you doing? Your email or you listening to me? Am I here? I got a lousy 2 minutes and you're out there doing email. I'll wait. Stop the clock. Hey, Mitch, if I run over time, it's your responsibility to stop me and nobody else's. Sorry, yours. You done, Howard?
You speak it.
Well, put the phone down.
There is a railroad to run, Murray.
Is it what?
Listen to you.
Tappan Zee Railroad Station. I want to see a new Metro North station underneath the Tappan Zee Bridge, and I want to see it there within a year. And yes, it can be done. I had a discussion with Drew last Friday morning, and he said, you got all these railroad tracks and switching problems. It's not true. Everybody who comes to the Tappan Zee Metro North station comes there by bus. It's only a commuter station. It's not an everyday station because the only way you can get there is by bus. Therefore, if you have to close the station, you just bust them into Tarrytown the way you're doing it now. So I just wiped out $30 million worth of track work. You don't need a station any longer than 4 cars long, and you've got the temporary station in the yard because you used it at Yankee Stadium. We don't need a fancy one. The plans that you use for the overhead to cross the tracks and the elevator is already in there. You don't have to, you know the price of it. And you can do it in 30 days. I mean, you can do it in not 265 days, 365 days. I know you can. It doesn't have to be fancy. You keep thinking, I mean, this is the Steve Jobs book. Have you been downstairs? This is a textbook on how to run a company. If you haven't read it, read it, because it tells you how to run Metro North. Your thinking as an engineer does. You need to think as what the commuter needs. The commuter needs to get on a train from Rockland County and get to Grand Central. Doesn't need a fancy station. It needs a cover over a wooden platform. There's space underneath the toll plaza, because I did it 15 years ago with Chris Waite, who was a thruway engineer and went on to become chief engineer of the thruway. And when Drew said to me, well, we got to do all this switching there, you don't have to do zero switching. Close the station if you have to, run the people on the buses into Tarrytown, both ways. Well, what do you think, Howard? Can you do it? At the New Jersey Transit meeting last week, Chairman Simpson said, I changed the rules, we're going to do it differently this morning. And what's his name over here was at the meeting, and there was a discussion about some project, and Jim said, hey, we're going to change the rules again right in the middle of the meeting, and we're going to deal with this right now. No, I will not listen to you. They're going to tell me from up there if they want me to change. Mitch can take the responsibility and tell me. You're just a guy over here. It's his responsibility.
Can
No,
you
I'm not done
Can you
I'm not
conclude
done
your
yet.
remarks, Mr. Bowden?
Okay, I'll conclude my remarks. Jim Simpson changed the rules in the middle of the meeting to say, we're going to solve this problem right now and save a month's time. It's in the record. He was there. He'll tell you when he gets up. I can't think of his name. You need to become more flexible. You need to think on the fly. Governor Cuomo said, get rid of the silos, exchange information. Ken Abrams did it at an IMTEC meeting. The message from the governor is clear. Change the way you do business. Cut out all of the steps that have to be there. Get the job done.
Thank you. Our second public speaker is Orrin Getz.
Hi, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board. My name is Orrin Getz. First thing I'd like to do is show you a great picture in the local newspaper from a week ago, Monday. It's a picture of Cardinal Timothy Dolan, who came to the Pearl River St. Patrick's Day parade, and it was on Sunday, March 18th. I marched in that parade and was honored to be greeted by the Cardinal. When I arrived at the parade, there were over 80,000 people participating. It's the second largest parade in New York State. At the end of the parade, it was at the Pearl River Station. A train arrived. It's revealing that people can get there by Pascack Valley Line trains. Cardinal Dolan thought it was a great idea to come to the parade. Unfortunately, Metro North did not. They didn't even bother to mention in Milepost West. It is a big parade, and these things should be recognized as events west of Hudson. Also, yesterday I spoke to the crew from train 2106. That's the Metro North Weekend Express from Spring Valley to Hoboken. It said that on Saturday, the 17th of March, which was St. Patrick's Day, over 200 people were left stranded in Rockland County because there weren't enough cars to accommodate them on that train. And it's interesting to note that on the Port Jervis line, they did run an extra train and accommodate the people, but nothing was done to accommodate the people on the Pascack Valley line. And this is a major issue that has to be addressed. Rockland County's needs, transportation needs, have to be better addressed. I also recollect at the last meeting that we mentioned the project of adding train 9653 to the schedule on April 6th and September 25th. This is the day before Passover, Good Friday, and the day before Yom Kippur. And President Permit said he would look into that issue. Well, the new schedule just came out, and it's effective April 1st, and unfortunately those two dates do not appear as running dates for train 9653, which leaves a 2-hour gap in the middle of the afternoon when people do want to get home early for these important holidays. And I just think that an explanation is due to us on what President Permit did, and maybe he can explain why these are not included in the new schedule. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to have a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing items regarding proposed, pending, and current litigation and employment of corporations. Got a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Carried. Okay, I need a motion to approve the minutes of February 27, 2012. So moved. Second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Our 2012 work plan, please note that the work plan has been adjusted to include quarterly reporting of diversity and our equal employment opportunity status on an agency basis. Howard.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I have a series of announcements I'd like to make. Let me start with a series of personnel announcements, many positive and one on a sad note with a retirement. We have made, in the past month, a series of appointments in our Maintenance of Way Department. As everyone knows, that's a critical department in the railroad, and I'd like to introduce the 3 new people who will be having different roles in our Maintenance of Way Department. First is Bob Puzalowski. Now, Bob is no stranger to the MTA. He worked at the Long Island Railroad for 28 years, most successfully, and now has moved over to Metro North to replace Bob Walker. So Bob, do you just raise your hand there in the back? Thanks. Then second, we've appointed John Wagner as his Deputy Chief Engineer. This is a new position which we've created in our Maintenance Away Department with the purpose of focusing on both staff development, organizational development, and cost efficiencies and how we save money in Maintenance Away. John? And John's been with Metro-North for many years as head of our Track and Structures Department. And third, Dave Malillo. Dave is now head of Track and Structures. He's been at Metro-North 19 years in our Capital Program Department. Dave, are you here? There he is in the back. And one of the goals we have as we face 2013 is moving people around between different departments to break down the different silos. So I want to just introduce the three people to the board and to welcome them to their new positions. On a sadder note, I want to recognize Bob Saracini, who is retiring as General Superintendent of Grand Central Terminal. Bob has been a major force in a positive way at Metro-North since 1985 when he joined Metro-North in our capital construction group. He was involved in rebuilding Park Avenue Tunnel, the restoration of Grand Central Terminal's roof and infrastructure, then moved on and became involved in building maintenance. He was the deputy in Grand Central, and he was our lead representative when we did the revitalization of Grand Central in the 1990s. In May 2005, he became general superintendent of Grand Central. And I think his success is best measured by the fact that in all customer surveys, Grand Central typically receives a 98 to 99% satisfaction. A real reflection on the work Bob has done to maintain Grand Central. So Bob will be retiring. We will miss him, but we wanted to recognize him and ask him to please come up, and we also have a little plaque for him. So Bob, there he is. Jim. He should be smiling.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. In terms of my report for the month, let me start on operations. February of this past year was a terrific year. It was the best February in Metro-North's history. Our trains ran 98.8% on time. We had no days when trains ran beneath 95% on time, and we had 18 days when it was 99% or better. So it's really a terrific performance. When you put in the 21 days in January, we were also above 99%. By the end of February, what that means is that we had 65% of the days of the year Metro-North ran 99% or better, which again is really a very high level of reliability. We've continued that in March, and so we are looking at, by the end of this, knock on wood, by the end of this month, this will be the best quarter in Metro-North's history in terms of performance. One of the things that we will be watching very carefully that's going to make this going forward a bigger challenge is that starting on March 19th, we took 2 tracks out of service in the middle of the New Haven line so that the state of Connecticut could continue its wire replacement, catenary replacement project. That is, by doing that, by going from 4 tracks to 2 tracks, it'll be a lot harder to run this type of service, particularly on the New Haven line. But it's critical that that project get done, so it's just necessary. With regard to CONSIS compliance, something we talk a lot about, it's been very good. The Hudson line has been at 100% for 2 months now. The Harlem line is at 99.9%. The New Haven line is around 99% as well. That New Haven line is where we had previous issues, and with the M8s coming, that has largely solved that issue. West of Hudson, service has been very good. Pascack Valley line at 99% and Port Jervis line at 97.7%. One other mention of operations I think worth mentioning is what happened on St. Patrick's Day. As many of you know, St. Patrick's Day has become the most difficult day of the year on Metro-North because of not only the volumes of people but the number of unruly people and what happens on the trains. This year we put in with the MTA police, who were integral in our planning, a special plan of significant number of extra trains, extra cars, extra train crew. We had special teams set up in 3 stations of Metro-North employees and MTA police, those being Beacon, Poughkeepsie, and New Haven, so that people first needed a ticket to get on the platform, so we made sure they get their ticket, and secondly, the police would also be checking them for alcohol, and we had big dumpsters that were more than amply filled up by the end of the day at these different stations. We also opened up our situation room to watch what happened. The results were somewhat astounding. We had the highest ridership ever. We carried that Saturday morning 56,000 people into Grand Central. An average Saturday morning is 18,000. So we're talking about a tripling of the ridership. The plan worked well, though we did not plan to have triple the ridership. We ended up with some overcrowding. We had about 7,000 people standing that day. We also had some issues of vandalism. We had over $140,000 worth of vandalism to our cars, where people were kicking out the lights in our coaches on the Upper Hudson Line. We have, again, done a debrief of what happened on St. Patrick's Day, and we will be modifying our plan further to accommodate next year when it's also on a Saturday. It depends what day of the week it is and what happens, but we'll be looking to, again, further modify the plan. With regard to safety, we're doing, as we reported previously, that we did very well in the fourth quarter last year. We're continuing that. January injuries were down 36%. And a part of that is due to the weather, but I think that we've continued to focus on a series of priority 1 briefings and job safety briefings, and I think that's having its effect. Ridership is very positive. February continued the upward trend. Ridership was up 4.9% versus last year. The gains are in all markets. Commutation up 3%, non-commutation up 7.8%. Year-to-date, we're up 4.9%, and if these trends continue, and we see at the moment no reason they won't, this will be the highest year in Metro-North ridership, and then I can say that we've more than doubled our ridership since 1983, as opposed to just about doubling it. Port Jervis, just on there, we are slowly recovering the ridership we lost from Hurricane Irene. So that we're now down around 20% from the previous year. It had been 25%, so hopefully it'll be coming back. On the financial side, January results are positive. Our operating revenues are almost 5% higher than budget, and the expenditures were 6% lower than budget. The other thing I will mention is on overtime. We continue to monitor that. It was on target to the budget. We have a regular process to monitor overtime, both in terms of high earners and hot spots and total overtime as well. On a different note, I did want to report back to the committee that questions have been asked on ticket validity and refund policies in terms of what the impacts were of the changes we had made as part of the previous fare increase. And just to remind everybody, as part of that fare increase, we had modified the validity of the tickets. One-way tickets had been good for 6 months. They now are good for 14 days. 10 trips had been for 1 year. They went to 6 months. We charge a refund fee of $10. So the 2 railroads working with the MTA have completed the analysis of what has happened so far, and let me report on that. The intent of the policies have worked as they were designed. We've estimated between the 2 railroads, we're estimating that we are getting about $8.6 million a year in additional revenue from these changes. About $7 million is due to the fact that we've reduced the time period tickets are valid. So if you have someone misses that ticket, they can't. If we miss the collection of the ticket, they can't use the ticket again. That's been reduced. There's been about $1.3 million in lower refunds to customers, and also about $300,000 in fees, which offset the processing cost. When we put in the policy, I think as many of you know, there was significant customer complaints about the policy. The level of complaints have been reduced. At the same time, this is still an issue both railroads hear about. And so our plan going forward is to continue to monitor this. and then we will consider this, any modifications with this information over this year. We will consider any modifications to the policy as part of the upcoming fare and toll changes. We will use the public hearing process, which we used when we put this in, as part of that to get any public comments on that, and will be considered as part of that whole effort, which will be later this year or early next year. So that's the report on that. I do have just a couple of other announcements with regard to quiet cars. On April 1st, when we put in our new schedule change, we will now have quiet cars on all our AM peak inbound trains and all our PM peak outbound trains. We have done our pilot testing. People have been overwhelmingly positive on it. So the furthest northern car coming inbound or outbound will become the quiet car on all those trains. They'll be designated with queues in the timetable. The other thing is, I should want to just emphasize that customers should pick up new timetables for April 1st. There are major, we've had to change a number of trains to accommodate construction on all three lines, and so they've changed, a number of trains are moving 5 or 10 minutes. Second announcement is just to let everyone know that the Brunel exhibit continues this week. It started last week. We gave I gave a little talk about it last week. Chairman Loder was able to be there, and Mr. Sador, Chairman Sador, along with my predecessors, Metro-North President, to talk about how Metro-North won this award. So this exhibit will continue for the next week in Vanderbilt Hall, and if you have an opportunity to see it, it's really quite fascinating to see what's going on around the world. Also announced on the GCT Centennial, Chairman Loder and myself had a press conference last week, which we've generated stories on the Centennial in over 300 different media outlets. And the announcement included the formation of a Centennial Committee, which is being chaired by our previous chairman, Peter Stangl, and also honorary chairperson, Carolyn Kennedy. We also announced some of the other people who were on that committee as well. Secondly, we unveiled the new logo for Grand Central. You can see this was designed by the firm Pentagram, and it's really, I think, everyone thinks it really captures Grand Central. I will point out that the time there, which is 7:13, is actually 1913 in railroad time or military time, which is the date of the when the terminal first opened. So that's how that time was set on the clock. The rest of the Centennial focus, we're going to, throughout 2013, we're going to focus on 4 fundamental themes. There'll be a rededication birthday celebration on February 1st, 2013. There will be a legacy project to preserve the legacy and also look at Grand Central going forward. Part of that, we're still working on the details, but part will include a renovated 42nd Street entrance to Grand Central from 42nd Street into Vanderbilt Hall. There will be a parade of historic trains, and there will also be an exhibit done by the Transit Museum on Grand Central the next 100 years. And I'll report to you as we develop over the next months as to what will be in the Centennial, but that lays out kind of the heart of what we're talking about. With that, Mr. Chairman, that's my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Chuck.
Howard, on pages 78 and 79, you list the supervisors by race and gender, and then you list the new hires. And my question is, are the figures for female supervisory staff an increase or a decrease?
Can we wait till we get to that section?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We haven't reached that area yet.
Yeah, well, let me, we'll look at that. I'll look at that while, until we get there. Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Howard? Okay, Helena?
Okay, good morning. I also would like to start with a personnel matter. I'd like to take a moment and recognize Long Island Railroad employee who we're very proud of, Gabrielle Rodriguez, who manages Long Island Railroad's Travel Information Center. She's here with us today. She was selected from more than 30 contestants from transit agencies nationwide to compete in Miami in the American Passenger Transportation Association's Call Center Challenge. She was among 7 finalists who took part in the event. I have to pause for a moment and tell you that there was a live audience of 200 people, and she was given questions that she had no preparation for, and was expected to respond and help a customer in need of assistance. She was, one of the judges said she was very calm and composed under fire, and that she had a very warm personality, which really helped. Gabrielle's husband, Chris Rodriguez, is a lead transportation manager for Eastside Access, and he's here today as well. Chris, stand up. Where are you? Very good. Okay, so we would like to present Gabrielle with the trophy that she won. If we could. This. Here we go. Jump through. Which way? Which way? Here we go. Good, good. Very nice. Okay.
Slide this chair just out.
Chair out of the way. There we go. Good. All right. Very nice.
Very nice. Reach up and
One
just grab
second.
the.
Let me let Jim get. Go ahead, Jim. Get right in there. Go ahead.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
reach up and fold a little dash in there. Nice. Just a little happy. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Very nice. Congratulations. Thank you. I also want to comment on our ridership increases, which we're very proud to note. We had ridership increases of 6.1% in February. I do want to point out that that does not include the leap year. If we counted the extra day, the ridership increase would have been 9.2, but fair is fair. If you equalize the work days, it was 6.1. But it does represent the 6th consecutive monthly growth for Long Island Railroad, which gives us an indication that the Long Island region is in a turnaround. Although we were lagging behind the New York job market a little bit, we seem to have picked up, and we're pleased to see that this growth has now continued 6 consecutive months. The non-commutation ridership increased 10.6% in February 2012 compared to February 2011. The non-commutation ridership increase was the second best percentage growth in the past 5 years. So we, of course, had a surge on February 7th for the Giant Super Bowl victory parade. That was a tremendous increase, but that merely got us ready for March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, where we carried an estimated on a Saturday 76,000 customers above our average to and from the parade. So it was a very busy day. I want to thank MTA Police and Long Island Railroad crews and support staff for the tremendous job they did. The no alcohol ban, certainly helped, and it did reduce incidents substantially. I am pleased to say we did not have, some of the issues that you faced on one of your upper lines with regard to vandalism. I also am going to note that we had another parade in Montauk yesterday. We had worked hard with the Montauk Sons of Erin and the Chamber of Commerce because they had had some prior incidents in earlier years, especially last year when it was a very warm day, with too many rowdy young people and excessive drinking. So they asked us to work with them. They changed the time of the parade to 10 o'clock. Our first train arrived after the start of the parade to ensure that we were not adding to the congestion. They start the parade in the same location that our trains come in. And the early reports I have is that it was a very successful shift to more of a family-friendly event, which is what the parade sponsors really wanted to see. So we will get the ridership numbers for that as well. But again, year-to-date total ridership continues to grow, and we're very pleased to see that. I also want to talk for a moment about on-time performance. February did set a new record for us. It was the best on-time performance for the month of February in our history, with 96.4% of our trains operating on time last month. You know, I always want to congratulate Howard on his outstanding on-time performance. We face some additional challenges at Penn. So when we reach 96, we're, just really pleased. We want to, of course, note that the weather has contributed to that as well. We had 6 100% rush hours in February, 5 a.m. and 1 p.m., which, of course, is our greatest challenge in our operation out of Penn. So that was a really wonderful month. We did talk last month about a review of our OTP goals. That review is still going on, and we are analyzing our delays by segment. I will share a more formal report with you next month, but I do want to just give you some early indication that we believe that our overall goal is a good one of 95.1%. We're analyzing where the goals occur. Where we don't achieve our goal in the system. And the most frequent location for delays is, of course, in Herald, between Penn and Jamaica. So that we don't really see a correlation to lowering goals on branches when the substantial number of the delays for all branches occurs between Penn and Jamaica. But we'll have a more detailed report for you next month on that. I want to talk about our quiet car program. We are in the pilot stage. We've let Metro North go first in terms of demonstrating where they are on it. But like Metro North, we've had some success. We introduced the quiet car program on the Far Rockaway branch last December. The initial pilot encompassed peak Far Rockaway branch trains operating to and from Brooklyn during rush hours. The program is voluntary and self-monitoring, but starting April 2nd, we will be expanding the quiet car program to include all peak Far Rockaway branch trains, including Far Rockaway branch trains operating to and from Penn Station during rush hours. Simultaneously, quiet cars will be introduced on the Hempstead, Long Beach, and West Hempstead branches that operate to and from Atlantic Terminal in Brooklyn. During our initial pilot program on the Far Rockaway branch, the quiet car was located at the east end of the train. Now, instead of the east car, the quiet car will be located in the westernmost car, first car in the morning, last car at night. As you may be aware, Penn creates some operational challenges for us on the quiet car program. At Penn, the cars at the east end of the platforms near the 7th Avenue subway tend to be much more crowded than those at the western end closer to the 8th Avenue subway line. And that's why we're moving the quiet cars to the westernmost car. We don't want a situation where customers are already in the crowded car and realize they have to move because they don't want to be in a quiet car. Because this could add to dwell time at Penn and delays at Penn. And as you know, we absolutely monitor platform dwell time at Penn. So we will see how that goes. We're working to inform customers where they could find quiet cars, and we'll monitor the progress of that. I do want to note that the PCAC, Mark Epstein, who's here today, he's been in touch with my organization. One of the concerns I think that he's expressing on behalf of customers who really enjoy the quiet car is how do you get better enforcement? We do have the shush card, and our conductors are handing those out. But as you can imagine, as soon as the conductor leaves the car, oftentimes there's certain customers that will just, go back into their mode of speaking, however they want. So we are trying to encourage customers to understand voluntary compliance. I got to look at what the IRS does as we enter tax season to ensure we get voluntary compliance. But we're working on that, and we're working with Mark Epstein's group to see what we can identify as different practices. I do want to talk about overtime hours. I have to note that while we had a growth in overtime hours in 2012 versus January 2011, the growth was due to additional work days in January in this calendar year versus last calendar year. But we are monitoring where our overtime spending is as against our budget, even though when adjusted, it's less than last year, because we are faced with a number of vacancies. And those vacancies, and actually we are at 99 vacancies in the maintenance of equipment department. We had an unexpected surge of retirements at the end of both 2010 and 2011. And as many of you know, there's a succession of titles in maintenance of equipment, so that it takes a number of years to train individuals to move up, particularly for road car inspector. So we are concentrating on filling those vacancies: electrician, car repairman, and road car inspector. We have a robust hiring plan to fill those vacancies by the end of 2012 and ensure that we have the right level of training that we can move things along. We have had some unscheduled maintenance, unanticipated expenses having to do with the Atlantic Tunnel half-tie replacement program. We're trying to balance that program as against protecting train service. So they have short windows of opportunity to get in and do that work. I would like at this time to address that actions that the Long Island Railroad is taking as a result of an agency-wide review that we have begun following the very tragic escalator accident that occurred on March 13th, 2012. And while I'm not going to go into any details about that incident, it's under a current police and railroad safety investigation. I want to bring the committee up to date that we have begun a comprehensive review of all of our escalator safety procedures, including maintenance inspection practices, reporting procedures. Howard Permit and I have had discussions and have included some of our board members on new reporting that we will do on a quarterly basis regarding escalator and elevator in-service requirements and any incidents that occur. While our review is continuing, I am taking some immediate steps to ensure that we're doing everything possible to improve safety and monitor the operation of our escalators. We have 19 line escalators, not including Penn Station. We will begin in the coming months to install additional safety sensors on 12 of the older escalators, and this will include the one in Lindenhurst. And this would improve the sensitivity of these escalators to be able to stop in any emergency situation. The escalators currently have a horizontal sensor. They are not equipped with a vertical sensor, and we believe that these sensors, which are in more modern escalators combined into one, would provide a greater level of safety. Also, the handrail speed sensors would be included. And of course, my goal is to determine whether these sensors would enhance the ability to more remotely monitor the escalator performance. if we could have, more electronic way of determining whether the escalators are operating the way they should. We do have very extensive reporting. We have phone numbers for customers to call. We have our ticket clerks and ticket agents, branch line managers who all monitor the performance of escalators. But we can have intermittent issues that we need to be careful that we have more modern ways of assessing. I always point to our M7 equipment. We have wayside maintenance diagnostic systems on our M7 equipment. We can, download those systems and determine how fast our train was going over a specific area of track. We can monitor all of the systems that were working and weren't working as that train was operating through the WMDS system. And I've asked our team to evaluate what they could do to give us a better remote monitoring of both escalator and elevator performance. And with that, that is, our report.
Any questions?
Ms. Williams, I have two sets of questions for you. I note that in the report you indicate, both at pages 89 and thereafter, or maybe it's before that you have lost some 400,000 riders per year on the Port Washington line by reason of the reduction of service during that period. What efforts have been made and what studies have been conducted as to whether it would not be opportune to restore that service?
We are in the process right now, actually, of looking at ridership losses on the Port Washington branch. When we put those service reductions in, there was an expectation that customers would migrate to either the train before the hour or after the hour. And we're trying to determine whether that estimate was correct on the Port Washington branch. In fact, if you look at page 95, to your point, we have put an asterisk on the branches where there were significant ridership reductions. And you will note that those are the branches where we had service reductions. And Port Washington clearly does jump out with a significant reduction.
The question I have is really, that was based on 2010 service reductions. Is there any estimate as to the cost of restoring the service as it was to recapture the 400,000 odd riders?
I would like to get back to you next month on that, and we'll take a look at the numbers and be able to present something more concrete.
Chuck, it's being evaluated at the headquarters level to determine whether or not there is a financially viable way to restore this with an increase in revenue and bottom line. It's being evaluated right now, and we'll report back to you when it's completed.
Sure. The second, we are having, as I understand it, an executive session on the subject of escalators and elevators.
We had it this morning at 8:30 for 20 minutes.
Whoops, that's what happens when you come late. I just have one question. When you put in the report, if you will, could you include the protocol for the care and attention to the escalators, many of which of yours are outdoor escalators and thereby have different problems?
Yes, we'll do that.
Any other questions for Helena? Michael?
The report on the East Side Access progress. I'm going to start with the Manhattan work. At this point, the work is actually the contractor for the work in the caverns under Grand Central is slightly ahead of the plan, and actually this is only half of the western cavern. The other half we don't see. It's already down to the level of the lower tracks. The wellways that were housed the escalators, the last one was totally excavated. Two of the wellways were totally concreted, and we are looking to finish that work again as part of the advance of the work in the cavern. The tunnels are being concreted. This is what you see here, and this is the form. It's quite a long form that we pour concrete to line the tunnels as we go along. The work at the 50th Street vent plant, and this is a side-by-side picture. What you see on the right is where we are right now, and we are proceeding now to steel erection and concreting, so that what you see on the other side is that how it will look when done, but we are now starting to work above the surface, and this area was also going to be used as an access point for the next contract. The tunnels we're looking at is, in effect, tunnel D and BC. The tunnel A and the Yardley tunnels were done, and what you'll be seeing is we are moving right now. Hello. The TBM piece. This is it's hanging there. It was done in pieces. The total weight is probably in excess of 400 tons, so we moved it in pieces into its new location. This is being preparation for the TBM to launch the D tunnel. You can see that we actually pulled the trailing gear out, and we are lowering the this is actually the head. The head itself is 205 tons, just to get a sense. And this is when we reinstall. This is how it looks. It's kind of impressive, to say the least. And we're right now with the tunnel D. The TBM is in place. It will start digging either today or tomorrow. On the other side, we have the tunnel boring machine that was pulled from the yard lead that will move into the BC tunnel, and you'll see it right there. The trailing gear is below and is being pulled out, and then will be actually ramp up just behind it. This is going to start sometime towards the end of April. So that work right now is on track to be completed. Just would like to mention a couple of other things. And the Northern Boulevard crossing, we're still working on the freezing. It's a very complex endeavor, and we expect to start excavating in about 6 weeks, later than we wanted to, but again, we want to be sure that we're doing it in a safe manner. The work in Harold continue to advance with the installation of catenary poles and signal towers, and we expect to have the coming weekend, actually one of the big weekends in Harold, to do work in conjunction with a lot of help that we're getting from both Amtrak and Long Island Railroad. This is the coming month, actually week, is a pretty big for procurement. We are going to open bids tomorrow for the 55th Street vent plant. And we are expecting to continue the procurement on the systems. That is something that we already see proposals in RFP, and that will take a few months to procure it. And then the CM12, the fit out of the structures, is going to be in effect advertised between now and the end of the month. That's about it as far as progress on the East Side Access.
Any questions for Michael? Okay, Chief.
Good morning. System-wide for 2012, we were even compared to last year in 2011 with 26 incidents. Pleased to report we were down in robberies from 2011 compared to 2012, 4 compared to 6, and down in larcenies as well, 16 to 18. Unfortunately, we were up in burglaries. We had 4 burglaries this past February in 2012 compared to none last year in 2011. Long Island Railroad, 14 compared to 15. Down in robberies, 2 compared to 4, and up 1 larceny, 10 compared to 9. We had 1 robbery in Copiague, it was force, and then 1 in East New York, another force robbery. Of the 10 larcenies, 4 of those were for electronic devices, and 50% of those happen off the trains, and obviously 50% happen on the train. The one burglary that we had in the east was at the Lindbergh Coffee Shop, and we did make an arrest on that incident. Metro North, for 2012, we had 11 compared to 9 incidents in 2011. 2 robberies compared to 0, 5 larcenies compared to 9 last year. And they were up in burglaries 3 compared to none last year. The burglaries, we had 2 at 125th Street. We believe it was a former employee from the newsstand, and we issued a want card for this individual. We visited his last known address numerous times, but so far we've been unable to locate him. And then the other burglary occurred at Yankee Stadium. It was a copper burglary. Just want to mention, for February 2012 compared to January 2012, we had 6 electronic devices taken this February compared to 11 in January. So it's a nice drop, and I attribute that not only to enforcement but to a educational campaign which was started when we started to see the rise. February 2012 compared to January 2012, again we saw a reduction. We had 40 incidents in this past January compared to 26, so that's a 35% decrease month to month. That month, the month's not over, is continuing in March. So we're pleased to see that. And again, I attribute that to awareness and enforcement. Arrests are up year to date, 16%, with 177 arrests, up 16% over 2011. I want to thank both agencies for their help on St. Patrick's Day. It was a busy day. We had a full complement of officers on both tours, and we worked, late and well with the agencies, information flowing back and forth. We did issue 25 criminal court summonses. Unfortunately, there were 9 assaults. We handled 36 aideds, mainly intox individuals, and we made 3 arrests. Just a update on the smoking ban. Since the ban went into effect, we've issued 39 summonses, 21 of those in the east, and 15 of those in the north, on Metro North, and 3 of those were in Staten Island, which has always been banned in Staten Island, and three smoking summonses were issued on St. Patrick's Day as well. If there's any questions?
Questions for the chief? Okay. Information items. Howard.
Yes, we have 2 information items. One is our ridership report, which we do annually. I think in it there are the statistics that support what we've been saying any month, so that's if anyone has any questions. And then the second is our EEO report, Human Resources Diversity Report, and I'd happy to answer any questions. So Chuck, if you could ask me that again.
Sure. You have submitted a series of numbers as to the breakdown of race and gender for supervisors and for personnel. And my only question was, are the number of female appointees greater in 2011 than they were in 2010?
Yeah. I believe the answer is yes, and we'll be happy to get you the exact numbers.
I'd like to, if you can, that would be appreciated, and I congratulate you on progress.
Good, thank you.
John.
Howard, I note the major increase that in the data on page 69 on the key intermediate fall ridership, particularly with respect to White Plains and Portchester. And I just want to ask, are there any issues with respect to that, crowding or anything that we should be aware of?
I guess I would answer it this way, John. I think the biggest issue, Karen, let me respond this way. There are a couple of issues with carrying this volume of people to intermediate points. Overall, it's a huge plus for Metro North. It's a huge plus for the region because we're connecting people who want jobs with where jobs are. So the issue becomes what are our challenges to do within a very positive question. So there are 2 of them. One of them is the ability for us to be able to collect tickets on relatively short rides where trains are crowded. And so we constantly are looking at different ways to do that in the most efficient manner. And we've tried a number of things. We're continuing to try different initiatives so we get the vast majority of the revenue due us. This is the hardest type of ticket to collect, because when someone gets on at Fordham and they get off in Mount Vernon, they're on the train for 7 or 8 minutes. If they're going to, New Rochelle, it's 15 minutes. So we're constantly, that's the first challenge. The second is Fordham Station is a significant challenge for us. It is a huge station in the morning. If you look at it, you see there are still, despite a number of improvements we've made, there are still crowding at that station. We have a project to double the width of the outbound platform, which will finally solve those problems. We've been held up because of further complications with the City of New York, who is also doing some work at Fordham Plaza. So we're trying to work through those issues with them. But the goal would be to improve the Fordham Station, and that's the other major challenge we have in serving these riders.
Okay, thank you. But just also with, I'm sorry, Chuck, let me just finish for a second. With respect to the ridership, on page 49, the reverse commutation, I note that there's also a large increase. And so if there are any issues with respect to your ability to not only do what you just described with respect to having ridership pay, which is primary and important, but if there are any issues with respect to exiting, ingress, egress, or anything with large influx of people, that would be something.
Right. Yeah, John. Again, it's really at Fordham. There are definitely issues at Fordham. At the other stations, we don't really have the issues. There is an issue, I should point out. There's an issue of train capacity in the reverse direction as well. Limitations on how many trains we can run, and we're at capacity during the rush hour. The project we are building in the Bronx, which is called CP 109, a new interlocking by Fordham, will help us a little bit. But we have a fundamental capacity problem coming out of Grand Central because we only have one track that's shared by both reverse trains and by deadheads, and that's at capacity right now. So that's a real problem. That's the other constraint I should have mentioned in the reverse, not in the intermediate flow coming into New York.
But I noticed that, I don't know if I have the page number right now, it doesn't matter. The standees does not seem to be a significant problem during that time.
No, right. We have been able to lengthen the trains to accommodate the trains have been all lengthened, so they're all 8 cars or whatever we need to carry the people.
Thank you. Howard, one quick question. I noticed that you are contemplating planning for a significant increase in retirements, or in terms of retirement eligibility next year. Is there a reason for that?
Yes. Well, first, people are getting older. But beyond that, in 2013, Metro North will be in existence 30 years. And so that's a critical time frame for the MTA pension plan. It's also a critical time frame for rail retirement. And so when you add those two together, plus the age of the workforce, we're looking at a significant bump up in retirement eligibility in 2013. I've talked to the committee over the past year about different efforts we are trying to take to address that, but it'll be a huge challenge and will continue to be from today through 2013 and beyond. This is a huge challenge for Metro North on the human resource side, and how do we maintain the workforce, both the agreement workforce, because we have a number of skilled people in certain areas where you have very skilled people, takes a long time to train, like a signal maintainer. How do we keep those people, because many of them are at their 30 years, as well as on the management side. It's a huge challenge as we look at our middle and senior management as well.
Is there any possibility of providing some incentive for extension of some of the more skilled people so that we could stagger that departure?
That would entail the question of incentives to keep people here is something we've talked a little about, Chuck. That becomes a broader conversation within the entire MTA about how we would do some of that.
Under this chairman, I have no problem. It would be solved.
Any other questions for Howard? Helena?
We have 3 information items as well: ridership report, an April schedule change, and a human resources EEO report. I'm just going to start with the last one first on the EEO report. To the extent that Howard experiences great retirement issues at Metro North, they have a ripple effect on both Long Island Railroad and New York City Transit. Because more employees seek salary and career opportunity growth. So as he posts vacancies, the immediate ripple effect is on us. So we're going to turn to the chairman as well to talk about incentivizing people to stay. Commissioner Myrtle, I don't know if you just heard that comment. We're making the comment that when Howard has a very large number of retirements, it has an impact on both New York City Transit and Long Island Railroad because employees will seek salary and career growth. So we just made the comment that we're turning to the chairman to help us.
He's got more experience with these issues and successfully so than any man alive, in my view.
And with that,
I know I negotiated against him on some of them.
I do want to note in our EEO report that Long Island Railroad actually had a slight decrease in the total number of employees. We went from 6,461 to 6,309 in 2011 over, the end of 2011 versus 2010. Our female headcount went down a slight percentage, 15.4 to 15.2. I am trying to determine how much of that was related to the number of people transferred to BSC. We also have in our information items information about an adjustment to the schedule to support bridge rehabilitation work. This is on the Montauk branch. It's very important that we get this work done, of course, before the summer season. We are using 3 separate weeks with weekday outages, Tuesday through Friday, because as you know, we have greater ridership on weekends than some of the weekdays, so we can accommodate busing on the weekdays. We are waterproofing the Shinnecock Canal Bridge and jacking and lifting North Highway and Montauk Highway bridges in the Hampton Bays. And we've already discussed our ridership report. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Questions?
I have 3, if I may. Page 192. It looks to me like line number 4 keeps having a broken rail or circuit problem at Penn. It's recurring in the report, as you can see, as a cause for the delays. What is there that can be done to focus on that? Or is that solely Amtrak?
Of course, broken rails in the East River tunnels is the responsibility of Amtrak. However, we also had concerns about repeat issues in the tunnel. Mike Gelomino, my Senior Vice President of Operations, has been working with Amtrak. We are in the East River Tunnel total track replacement program, but they advanced certain work in Line 4 to try to correct some of the rail issues. We'll be giving you a more, full report, I think, on the East River tunnels as we go forward with our summer program.
But it looks also like it's circuit failures in that area.
And that's their responsibility as well, track, signal, power, although we handle the third rail for them. But the track and signal issues have been Amtrak responsibility, and there have been some issues. Mike, anything that you can recall on these specific incidents?
One of the issues, track circuit failure, is related to a busted rail. If you have broken rail, that opens up the return circuit. So that is what this track circuit issue was.
What's the plan to deal with it?
There is a rehabilitation project that is ongoing. It's pretty extensive, and we are in Line 4 right now, as a matter of fact.
Okay. Second question, if I may. If you will go to page 193, the mean distance between failures seems to have significantly deteriorated throughout the 2012 data in January, etc., as compared with last year. Is there any? It seems to be across the board, unless I misread this.
Mike, if you want to address, we have been we saw the same trend in the numbers, and we're trying to identify what it meant by fleet. Mike, I think you had.
It's across the fleet, as I understand it.
You had taken a look at this.
In January, the MDF did dip a little bit. However, I would point out we met the goal on every single fleet except for the DE fleet. We continue, if you look at the rolling average, we continue to set MDBF records with the rolling average. We did dip in January. On the DE fleet, we have identified the issue being we're having a problem with a radio power supply. We're in the process of engineering out a modification that I believe it was 3 or 4 failures on the DE that were related to the radio power supply.
Well, look at the DM. You're down from 68,000 to 18,000.
Commissioner, if I may, the goal is 18, and actually we met the goal and surpassed. The DM is actually a very good news story. We've done a lot of modifications. It is related to math and the theory of small numbers. A single prime will have a dramatic effect. We did meet the goal, I would point out, in January, though, for DM.
My purpose is simply to make sure that we're focused on getting it done, because this looks like a deterioration, whatever the goal may be.
Well, can I just make? As you know, over the years, I've pointed out the problems with the diesel fleet in particular, and I want to thank Mike. And I know Commissioner, he's very much on top of the diesel fleet. That's where he comes from. So I want to thank you for updating us on that. And I trust, because it has been about, if you look at the rolling average, even we're starting to decline a little bit. So and this has been about 2 months, I think, of a problem. But I'm happy you identified a specific problem. I look forward to the coming months' increases in that area.
And my last question is with respect to our traditional excessive standees on various other lines. May I make this suggestion? There have been a series of explanations for them, running from the length of the platform not being able to support longer cars and the like. May I suggest that perhaps the riders who are placed in this quandary ought to get a flyer telling them what the problem is, where the source is, and they can then address it. Because this has been going on since I joined the board. If it's been going on before that, it's too long.
We will, take that under advisement as a consideration. Many of those commuters are well-practiced commuters. They know what to expect. They go to that train anyway. But we will look at what we can do to better inform them. Again, what you're seeing here is a program number. We have to benchmark that on an annual basis against the actual experience of the customer.
You have standees over and above the program. Take Huntington again.
Yes.
I mean, you go the same culprits. I'm just saying to you, the fact that we've inflicted pain for years doesn't give us license to continue to do it.
Yes.
Might I? Sure. Point of order?
Sure.
Mr. Chuck, the biggest problem we have on both railroads is the fact that most of the seats have 3. And there's a feeling on the part of a lot of riders that seat in the middle, which there are hundreds on every train, stay empty, that people don't like other people to sit in the 3 seats. Giving the people who've opted to stand a piece of paper which will only be thrown on the floor and continue to create more of a litter problem, I'm not sure is the right approach. I think the right approach is to have all of the riders understand how important it is that we have purchased cars with 3 seats, and the middle car is not a second-class seat. It is a real seat, and we should encourage everyone to take advantage of that, and most notably the people on the window side and the aisle side letting individuals sit in between, which there's a tremendous amount of pushback on both railroads.
I stand properly corrected.
Well, but let me just make an additional point out. These numbers here assume people are using the middle seat.
Yeah,
Am I
they
correct?
do.
Yes, these numbers
I
assume,
just was
these are
going
not
to,
who's
right.
really standing in the trains. These
And I
numbers
stand
are
corrected.
actually yes. These
I'm
numbers
trying
are,
to do everything to avoid more garbage on the floor of
No,
the
no,
railroad.
I don't disagree with the handout issue. That's a whole other thing. But these, just so everyone knows, these numbers include that everyone's sitting. So
Right.
when people don't, the crowding is actually worse. Now, people should sit in those seats. I agree. But and Commissioner Myrtler points out quite correctly, the additional standee problem is something we really should look at as a serious. And I think Huntington and I think Port Jefferson is something that I think they're going to take a look at, and I was happy to hear that next month we're going to see a report about how to maybe improve that. And a lot of those delays, I understand, have something to do with Harold. So it was good to hear that, and maybe we won't have to change our goals, and there's some other way to maybe through rescheduling, I don't know. But I look forward to that.
Yeah, and I'm concerned as we move forward more on East Side access and the amount of problems that we're going to be having with Harold and trying to squeeze through many more, that this problem might get worse before it gets better.
And that would be related to the construction, and we're working, very hard with Michael's team to ensure that we try to, evaluate those impacts.
But am I correct that the Huntington problem is primarily because the length of the station prohibits the use of the longer cars, and that in turn is the responsibility of the town of Huntington?
No, I think we are mixing a bit of apples and oranges. And I, would like to give you a little overview of the Huntington operation, and perhaps it would make sense if I, put a couple of slides together. Let me just briefly say that Huntington is a connecting point for our diesel service that goes from Huntington to Port Jefferson, and our electrified service from Huntington west. We have no yard in Huntington and no yard for the electric equipment. We have to depend on storing the diesel equipment in Port Jefferson. So when the equipment comes in, we are short a couple of things. One, a yard, and 2, platform space. But it isn't so much the length as it is the width. What we actually would benefit from is, an arrangement where we had another island so that the track was alongside the 2 existing tracks. So the diesel could come in, customers could transfer to the electric service, and then you could go forward from there. But it is a major, point of congestion. So there are a number of operational improvements that could be made if the infrastructure changed. One of the things we are looking at is where, could you lay a third track operation, in the station. The existing platform is a 12-car platform.
Has anyone started to work or given any thought to options to cure that and putting it in writing, and so that you can start maybe finding a solution if, as, and when money arrives?
Yes, and we have been putting a number of plans together. We've met with the town of Huntington, and we'll, be happy to brief you on what we have as a strategic vision for improving Huntington.
My only concern is it shows up every single meeting.
And it will continue to show up until we get a programmatic infrastructure investment.
My sympathies go to the people of Huntington.
Okay, any other questions for Helena? Okay, we have procurements. Metro North has 2 competitive procurements totaling $13,208,363. Can I get a motion in a second before discussion, please? Second? Okay.
Right. So we have 2 competitive procurements this month. The first one is to award 3 competitively solicited 5-year service agreements for the repair and delivery of our DC power traction motors. on the M3 fleet, the M2, M4, M6 fleet. This was competitively bid. Basically, what we are doing here is setting up contracts to allow us to fix diesel motors that need to be repaired. Most typically in the winter months is when we have the problem when they ingest the snow. What we have done is we've looked at our future projections, which involve the retirement of the M2, M4, 6 over the next few years, the continuation of the M3, determining what we need what we believe the requirement will be to fix the motors. Then we have awarded these amounts of money. These are our projections to these 3 firms. We will modify between the firms depending on the circumstance in terms of what's the best price and who does the best work, depending on what exactly we need. So that's the first procurement. The second one is a miscellaneous service contract for portable floor jacks for Metro North and Long Island Railroad overhead cranes, turntables, and car hoists. And this is an agreement which has a significant price decrease of about 10% since the last go-round, and this is for both railroads. So we'd ask your approval.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Construction has 2 modifications and 1 ratification, totaling a little under $1,700,000. Michael.
Good morning. The first item is a modification to the Eastside Harrow Structures Part 1 contract, requesting approval to add work related to the location of Amtrak signal and communication utility lines in the amount of $987,904. This is a scope and budget transfer. The second item is a modification to the Eastside Access Queens Board Tunnels contract for additional geotechnical and structural instrumentation and structural improvements to an existing bridge structure in the amount of $324,500.
Can I get a motion? Second? Discussion. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried.
Capital Construction has 1 item for ratification this month. It is for modification for the substitution of a rock face cut-ahead for the contract specified mixed face cut-ahead on the Michael Tunnel boring machine under the Harrow Structures Part 1 contract in the amount of $355,577.
Any discussion? Can I get a motion? So moved. Second? Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, our next meeting is scheduled for April 23rd at 8:30. I urge you to look at our agency reports on operation, finance, ridership, and our capital program. They're on the latter part of the book. I need a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second. Second? All in favor? Carried.